Hello, everybody out there in Facebook land. I I schedule my lives for 6 o'clock on Wednesday, so I am determined to be here and do it. But today has been just the weirdest day. It's been one of those computer days from hell. It started off with my Facebook page actually being hacked and having to learn what that means and tell my friends and change my password and settings and learning more than I've ever known about Facebook and who advertises to you and all of that than I have known before. Hopefully I've gotten rid of some of the riffraff and I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but here I am. So there's so much happening in the world right now, really. Um, it's just going so fast that it's like I don't have it at all, but I do have stuff that I'm interested in. So it has nothing to do really with what's going on out there, which is usually what I talk about. One thing I wanted to mention is see that red hat? Remember last week I said that some people will like hallucinate something out of it? I thought I should leave it there to show you what it is that people were seeing, that they were thinking. See over there, see that's a hat hanging on a doorknob. So in case you've been hallucinating what it might be, I just thought I would leave it there to let you see that your mind can play tricks on you. Speaking of the mind, this is what I've been thinking about that we would talk about here today. If anybody's here, probably not, because I did not I didn't announce it. I doubt that all of you all remember my schedule, that I do a Facebook Live on Truth Telling Wins on Wednesdays at 6. I'm the only one that knows that. So I don't even really expect anybody to be here, but I am fulfilling my promise to myself that I will be here every Wednesday at 6. And I think next Wednesday might be the first of the month. Let me see. So maybe I won't be here by myself. Yep. Looks like next Wednesday, Nancy Meyer should be here with me. And maybe we'll have something to talk about then. But speaking of the mind, do you know that in psychiatry, psychiatrists believe that the brain equals the mind, or the opposite, the mind is the brain? Do you get what that means? Do you see where that could falter? That when there's no brain activity, right? Like near-death experiences, that there should not be any mind activity. And yet, how many people come back with similar, almost the same experiences? That they went down a tunnel, saw a white light, saw relatives, saw God, whoever they know as God in their religion, saw someone that they know is dead, and saw their life flash before their eyes, right? We all have heard that one. And felt so peaceful, didn't want to ever leave there, and were told or somehow knew that they were not finished, that they needed to go back. Maybe they were even given their choice. Do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And then something hits them, like their child, their spouse, and they know, or that their work is just not finished, that there's more for them to do. And they're pulled back into their body. Other people have experiences of hearing, seeing, the things that were going on in the hospital room with the nurses and the doctors and the monitors, and that their heart had stopped, and whatever, and they were looking down from the ceiling. So if the brain is the mind, or maybe supposedly there was no brain activity, and yet they heard what was being said by their loved ones who were holding their hands and telling them things, and they come back and they can tell them what they were saying, or that they were lying in bed with them or something. So for scientists to say that the brain and the mind are the same thing, that we can find the mind in the brain, we can cut it open, we can look, and woo, there's your mind. It's almost harder to really believe that than it is to believe that there's some transcendence, right? Some transpersonal experience, something that's beyond the personal, and that the mind is connected, right? I remember in the 60s, I think, my brother and I had a little book of something like 99 experiences of ESP, and I remember, I think I only remember one for sure. It was 60s, it was during the Vietnam War, and it was that right at the moment when her son had been shot and killed, a woman collapsed on the staircase. Now, the mother was in America, the son was in Vietnam. How did she know? It's that mind that knows things like that. That is not located in the brain. And yet, that's one example of how doctors, scientists, whatever you want to call them, psychiatrists, they're doctors, psychologists are scientists in a way. One of the reasons that psychiatrists have to be MDs, doctors, is that they have to take chemistry, because what do we give patients of either MDs or psychiatry? We give them chemicals. So they have to know chemistry. Again, it's like we're some kind of chemistry experiment, that we're made up of chemicals. Our brains have chemicals, hormones, which are chemicals, neurotransmitters, which are chemicals, processes, and that we can do a little chemistry experiment, put it in the tube, the test tube, mix it up, pour it down someone's throat, give them a pill, and it'll change their mind, their brain, their chemistry, their being, their psyche. And we buy in. We buy into it in medicine as far as physical ailments too, right? Although they don't really teach us this. That they know that the placebo effect is healing people in America, because doctors are the shaman or the witch doctors of ancient cultures. And in cultures that believe in shamans or witch doctors, whatever that their doctor, their witch doctor, their shaman says to them will heal them. And we could go to the converse of that too. We could say that when you're shunned from a tribe, banished from a tribe, there is something called voodoo death. That if the whole tribe tells you that you are not worthy to be around anymore and you need to leave, that people will sometimes die. They'll shut down their own body. You can't will yourself to die, can you? And yet you can. It's been proven. There are cases of it. I mean, through history, through lore, through tribal cultures, voodoo death is known. So we can shut down. And being part of the tribe in the new understanding of brain science is so important. Social acceptance is so important to people because it is who we are as mammals. Puppy piles, kittens, cuddling, sleeping together, interspecies cuddling, nursing even, we need to have love. We need to be with people. It's really important for the brain, the upper brain, the mammalian brain, and to be shunned, to be shut out is part of the primitive brain system that is part of that shutdown system. A feign death experience. It is the same thing that actually makes us faint. It's part of the parasympathetic system that shuts down. And we've always thought of the parasympathetic system as the nice system. The sympathetic system is the part that has us running and fighting, fight, flight. The parasympathetic makes everything nice, like a lullaby. We can, just now have ourselves put to sleep and relax. But if we go too far, we go to total shutdown. And we can see by the suicide rate, the loneliness epidemic. I just had somebody say last week, "Oh, have you heard of the newest epidemic? Loneliness." Like, yes, I've been studying that for at least a decade. We do have an epidemic of loneliness. And look at what happens to kids. Look at the suicide rate. Look at the, what we talk about, the bullying that goes on that we had bad enough when we were kids. Oh my God, I'd come home and I'd write in my diary about it. But now you can't get away. You turn on your phone to maybe connect with your friends, and what's there for kids? I'm saying a bunch of, you're whatever, you're a moron, you're an idiot, you should just die. I mean, people say this to people. Sometimes people we know, sometimes people we don't know. I'm seeing it right now on American Idol, that the judges are saying, don't read your reviews. Just, it's better, because the good ones are going to make you feel good, but the bad ones are going to make you feel so bad. And I talked last week about the negativity bias in the brain, that if we hear good things and bad things, there's a saying in brain science, the good slips off like Teflon, and the bad sticks like Velcro. And it's really hard to get it unstuck once it's gotten into our brain. It's hard to get it out. And I bet you can remember things, because I can, from 6th grade and maybe before. Things that you heard about yourself, that other people said about you, that You probably don't remember how many people said really nice things about you. Okay, one of the things that people would say about me in my what do they call autograph books, like after camp, is always keep your smile. I thought it was something they said to everybody. And then after a few years, and I would start asking other people, is that what everybody always says to you? And they said no. And I realized, oh, okay, I guess I really do smile a lot and people notice. And it's been a trait I've always had. But, you know, it took me a while to figure that one out, but the one where my boyfriend wrote a little note that he was breaking up with me in 6th grade because I was flat and uninteresting, that stuck in my brain forever. So, and then I grew. Oh well. So we have to be careful about those things that we let stick in our brain because they plug us in and can depress us. But, and this is what I want to talk about right now, the way that modern therapy, psychiatry, psychology, the therapeutic process tries to deal with it. And my hero in brain science is someone named Stephen with a PH, Porges, Porges, Stephen Porges. And he created, invented, discovered, realized what he calls the polyvagal theory. And the vagus nerve is the one that goes down here. And he realized that about the parasympathetic system, that the same thing that can make us feel all sweet and lullaby and go to sleep and safe can also kill us through voodoo death, crib death even. It's the parasympathetic system that's just going down until we're dead. That's the good system. That's not that sympathetic system that gets us, wanting to do the fight flight. This is called the freeze. The system wants to freeze. So this is what he has to say about it, and this is what I wanted to talk about today, and it's just what I'm interested in, so it's what I want to talk about today. Hopefully somebody else will want to hear it. Maybe other people will listen in the future, and it may be just what you need to hear, and maybe the therapeutic world will figure it out sometime. They'll kind of get it that they've been missing it. So this is what Stephen Porges says. That, and I put up a meme today, that compassion equals therapeutic presence and witnessing. And that's from him, okay? That's why I put up that meme that I put together like that, like an equation. I got it from him. So he says they go by a behavioral model. Okay, I know behavioral models because when I went to school, and the reason I became an interpersonal communications major was because the psychology department in my school in upstate New York in the early 70s was a behavioral model. B.F. Skinner. Stuff in, stuff out. Pavlov's dogs, conditioning, experimenting on rats, making them run through mazes and learn, learned behaviors. Like everything is that. And I was more Abraham Maslow, and what was the book? What was the author of the book called? Joy. It was a whole different idea of humanistic psychology back then that was coming in. So Stephen Porges says that the therapists today are still stuck in this behavioral model of meds. Remember, chemistry. Mix it in, put it with the brain, and do the opposite of what the brain is doing. They think, okay, it's depressed, we'll add an upper. It's up, we'll add a downer. Like math, like it's just going to work, like that's what we are, an equation. So he says it's meds and it's cognitive change. It's all an old world view that mental or psychiatric disorders are cognitive structures that can be modified. Remember, behavioral modification. through conditioning, through learning, through association and habituation. And he says that the polyvagal theory advises us, their perspective is it's an organistic state model, that the whole organism is off, and we have to see where it's off. That depression is a cluster of symptoms, and he says sometimes they think of it as anxiety, and they think that they can just treat the anxiety, when that is not what the depression is made up of. That he says it's part of that parasympathetic system that's shutting down. It's a shutdown system with a loss of purpose, and that the way that we deal with it, and we know, people have methods of dealing with it. They drink, they smoke, they do drugs, they exercise, they eat, they, do something to, OCD, they stay busy. They have to do their little rituals of turning the doorknob 5 times or something. And he says all these things are their attempt to stay alive, because their system is trying to shut down, and that they're not being bad, wrong. We don't need to slap their hand and say, stop. And we don't need to say, look, you have so much to live for. Why are you depressed? That talking doesn't get us out of that system, because the system of talking is prefrontal cortex. It's that social system when you're part of the tribe, when you have friends, when you feel good, and when there's something that has gone wrong. And we're not saying, it could be a wife and mother who's really loved and has lovely children and a husband that loves her and a job, and yet she's depressed. You don't just have to add chemistry to it, that there may be a reason. And as an alchemical hypnotherapist, I know the reason is from something that happened that is now coming up to look at. That it's been okay to brush it under the rug, brush it under the rug, brush it under the rug, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then one day, we've lost all the reserves. That's the way Dr. Daniel Amen talks about it. That we have so much reserve, and that one day it runs out and there's nothing left. And boom, crash, shut down. How do I stay alive? I know they have wonderful kids, husband, a lot to live for. But telling them that doesn't heal them. And spending an hour with them where they get to talk about it and you go, it'll be okay, that's not what they need. And you're not getting to the bottom of the issue. So he says what's happening, if you were looking at it in his model, you would see an oscillation between maybe hypervigilant behaviors, highly anxious, and mobilized defense mechanisms, OCD, and then shut down. And that the professionals now think that they have just a stimulus response, that you just look at the behavior, you have input, output, you do something to change the behavior with a drug or talk or something, and voila, you're on your way. You're, bye, you should be good now. Okay, see you next week. We'll talk about it again. And that they're not appreciating the flexibility and the plasticity of the brain, that the things that have gone wrong can be found, and we can be I think of me as kind of a brain fix-it person. I call myself a private eye for the soul, because we have to look at it on a soul level of what has happened to you, and let's feel that. Feel feel. It's a feeling level solution. We have to go into the body because that's where it lives. The body, if you remember last week, I talked about how what our body-mind system is geared toward is safety, is living, is survival of the species, of the individual. We'll do whatever we have to. How about that hero at the Waffle House who grabbed the gun, burned his hand, got shot, got grazed by a bullet, and says he isn't a hero. He was trying to save himself. That's human nature. That is what we are wired for. That he knew it was him or them. That he was going to die. And he didn't do it like, da 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 da, here I come to save the day. Mighty Mouse is on the way. No, he did it to save himself. He wanted to be a dad to his 4-year-old daughter. He wanted to stay alive. And in staying alive, he kept a lot of other people alive. I also write in my book, talking to myself, learning to love the voices in your head. When I get to the hero archetype, that heroes never think that they're a hero. That is so typical of a hero. He's not doing it to become a hero. He's doing it because, it's the right thing, because he, like those guys on the train in Brussels, in Belgium, on the way to Paris, they were, well, at least one of them was trained in the army, and he had that training, and he got his other buddies that he had grown up with since childhood, and they just went into action. You do it by reflex. You do what you are called to do in that moment. And if we get back to depression, we can't just try to do what's known as, again, in brain science, as a top-down method of healing. Let's stay in the top brain, the one that's wired to play and socialize and be happy and talk. That's where the talking comes from. Let's talk about how you don't feel good, and let's fix it from up here. You can't fix it from up here because it's down here and in here. It's in the middle brain and the lower brain. The middle brain is where I work with the emotions and the memory. And the lower brain is the one that shuts us down and makes us afraid and want to just stay safe. Under the covers, don't leave the house. So by saying, hey, you got everything to live for, you don't need to feel so hopeless, it's like Spock does not compute. Or is that the robot on Lost in Space? Will Robinson does not compute. I'm not sure if that was Spock or if that was the robot. But you know what I mean. It doesn't work. And sometimes people will even, they'll maybe smile at you and pretend they hear you, but it doesn't do it. It doesn't work. So bottom up, what's going on lives in our body. We have a body mind. We don't just have a mind, and our mind is not located in the brain. Our mind's located in the heart, in the gut reactions, gut feelings. We look at what's happening. Barbara Bush dies, and now HW immediately gets sick. Heart sick. It's in our bodies. So we need to start with, how do you feel? Let's go to the place that feels it. And from there, we could call it body talk. I do that a lot with clients. And that's why, people will ask me, do I need to be hypnotized or I can't be hypnotized? That isn't it. we just have that magician, what's his name in Las Vegas, and now we have to see his trick. He's got to show it. So what does that mean? We have to see that his trick that he's been trying to make everybody thinks, that he puts these, what is it called? The 11, is that it? Or 13 or something from the audience go in, and he covers them up and then lifts it and they're gone. And now we know they've been taken out through the back and they show up in the back of the house. It wasn't magic. They walked and one guy slipped and now he ended up in the hospital and he's suing. So it's not magic. And how did I get on that? Oh my God, I think I've lost my train of thought. Somebody remind me. I don't know if anyone's hearing me. I can't see anything. That is not it. It's not magic, and we need to go in and talk to the body. So I think what I'm saying is, when people say, do I need to be hypnotized? No, you don't. Because if you have a body, it will usually be the thing that will give the clue to what the block is. And we need the block. That's what we need. I use hypnosis. We alchemists use hypnosis to get through this blockhead. This is our block. We got to get out of the thinking brain. And that was really my problem. That's why I wrote a book about all those different voices in our heads, because we got to get through those. And then we got to get into the body and find out what is the secret our body has been not telling us, and listen to that. And through that, we can get a clue. Sometimes it comes in mysterious ways. I had a person that was driving me crazy, and what does she talked a lot, and what does my subconscious mind bring up? A shark. Because a shark equals Jaws. And she talked a lot. Jaw, So, sometimes we have to be able to interpret what comes up from the body, from the mind. They work in harmony, and eventually we get through, like a little scavenger hunt. So that's why I call myself a private eye for the soul, because I'm always looking for the clues, and they do lead to the truth. We can get through there. So no, you don't have to be hypnotized, but you have to be willing to have an imagination, because without you talking back to me, I can't do anything. I'm not trying to be a magician. I'm not trying to be a hypnotist and tell you now you feel great. You won't have that anymore. No, because that's not going to work. I mean, it might, but hypnotists need you to keep coming back. I don't, because the brain is plastic and we can change it. So, this one, Dan Siegel, he talks about this 16-year-old who he worked with, and that after 10 weeks, the work he did started to change him. And he goes, well, I think probably 10 weeks is how long it takes for that, plastic brain to change. But you know what? That's still an idea that therapists and scientists hold. It doesn't need to take more than boom, like a near-death experience, and you're changed. So, bottom up, go from the body, from the place that you don't feel safe, and let that filter up. Work with it from whence it came. Let's see what else I have from Stephen Porges here. Humans evolved to rapidly shift from that safe, welcoming state to, out of fear. Because he talks about a welcoming state, like, what do we do when we welcome someone? We open our arms. that is scary to a body that wants to close down. So we have to make people feel safe. And we can do that with our voice, with our eyes, with our face, with our smiles. And we can help people through compassion and empathy create safety, which is the meme of witnessing them with a therapeutic presence. And let them be where they're at and go searching through to find, to navigate to where the problem is, and then we can change it. Snip, snip. That's some of the magic that I do. And it doesn't mean that you get a bunch of people with a flashlight to go through the back of the audience and come back to the, to the back of the auditorium from backstage because they've walked through all these little tunnels. No, it's different kind of magic. This is the real magic that works within the structures of how we are wired. And I know this can get complicated. You gotta trust me. I have done it myself, and I have gone from that place of fear and safety and stomach aches and victim to the point where I'm talking to a little phone sitting on my desk and I don't know if anyone's listening, and I'm not scared. And speaking in public is the scariest thing you can do. Okay, I'm not in public, but I am in a way. And I'm doing it. So, okay. Psychiatry ain't all it's cracked up to be. The meds they're using do not do what they tell you they do all the time. We are now the lab rats that are being experimented on. And let's say that, I was saying 30 years ago, probably about 10 years ago. So I'll say 20 years from now. I was saying 30 years. It would take 30 years for everybody to get that this stuff is just obsolete. I'll say 20 years now. In about, what's that going to be? 2040? Something like that. That you won't recognize psychiatry, psychology, all these things. Meds have their place. They stop us. They're a stopgap solution. And for some people, like bipolar, some people really, really need to stay on them because their brain chemistry is wired differently. But for other people, like who are just depressed, we need to be there with them and find out what is it that's really going on and happened to them. So I will see you again next week with Nancy Meyer, and we'll probably have something completely different to talk about, but I like to talk about the therapy that of the future, you could say, although it's here now, and the brain scientists are just catching up to it. All right, if anyone wants to try it, get in touch with me. You know what? I am going to, just to see if anybody's listening, if anybody, what am I going to offer? Okay, what can I offer? If anyone is on with me, because I don't think anyone is. If anyone is on with me right now, I will offer a $100 2-hour session. I normally do a $220 to $300 3-hour session. I am going to go for a $100 2-hour session if anybody says yes right now. I gotta throw something out there and see if anybody's with me. It's something that you can't lose, really, I'm telling you. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye. And maybe this will stop.